unconscious reaction machine. Everything you do is reactionary. Everything you do is pretty much based upon what's happening around you and your reaction to it. You are not able to do anything. All you can do is react in a secondary manner, basically in hindsight. That's why people usually say hindsight's 20/20. Because you make what appears to be the wrong choice, and then later on you say, well, if I'd have known this or known that, I'd have chose differently, because you're a reaction machine. You're basically a robot. You're like a pinball in a pinball machine, getting smacked around by flippers and various events and scenarios. You don't really have stewardship of your vessel. You don't have control of anything, to use a fiction term. You're just a boat being flopped around at sea to eventually be dashed against the rocks, and it's over. Hello, folks. Welcome to For the Quantum Grammar Shoot podcast, the only podcast of its kind that I'm aware of on the interwebs. I'm your host, Jason-Matthew Glass. You may call me Jason. And in this podcast, we will look at various topics, or actually, I will look at various topics through the lens of correct sentence structure, communication, parsing, syntax, grammar, i.e. quantum grammar, the wonderful technology brought to the public in 1988 by the late David-WYNN Miller. Now, what you just heard from me there is basically a paraphrasing of the late G.I. Gurdjieff, the fourth way esoteric teacher who taught during the 1800s and 1900s. He had a school over in France. And this way, called the fourth way, is actually purported to be a very ancient set of techniques or mechanics for mankind, for those who chose to follow these techniques and utilize them to basically raise their awareness and bring themselves out of the, as he would call it, the automaton, i.e. robotic nature of mankind, and be able to make conscious choices and be able to be a steward of one's vessel in everyday life rather than the reaction machine. So to bring it to another level, maybe break it down a little bit, because, and I have used this example in other videos. The example that Gurdjieff would say is that when you get up in the morning and you first roll out of bed, maybe you're not aware of how you're feeling at that point, what mood you're in, whatever, blah, blah, blah. But you get up really fast and you stub your little toe on one of the wooden legs of your bed and you break it and you fall to the floor in pain. Then, just as you're doing that, your daughter hears that you're up, doesn't know that you've fallen or that you've broken your toe, comes running up to the door, very happy that it's the first day of school or first day of summer or something that she's very happy about, and she wants to share her enthusiasm and how happy she is. And she comes in all bustling and full of energy and light. Say, "Daddy, Daddy, Daddy." And then you look up at her and scream, "Get out of here! Can't you see I'm in pain? What's wrong with you?" And now all of a sudden, you have wrecked her day when she was so happy. Why? Because you're a reaction machine. Because you let something as minuscule as a broken toe wreck everything around you. You allowed external events to control your inner demeanor. And this is what Gurdjieff is talking about. This is why the majority of folks out there are zombie-like reaction machines. Hypothetically, theoretically, the conscious man or woman, the individual who is a master of themselves, would never allow something like that to happen if they chose not to. And folks, I do have firsthand experience with this. Although I am not such a master of myself to the degree that when I'm in a great deal of pain, that I can basically override that through my mental capacity and be able to conduct business as usual in a very neutral manner. I'm not quite there yet, but I definitely do not fly off the handle at people. It's a very delicate thing, really, and it's a very difficult thing to do, to become a master of oneself. It takes many, many, many years of work, as Gurdjieff would call it, the work. So let's see, what's a good way I can go with this now? So when you go through life, now I know with correct sentence structure, we try to say, or actually I try to say, that we don't go into any situation with presumption and assumption with regards to the grammar and also with anything else. However, there are situations where we have to guess about things. We have to make assessments, okay? So let's go back to that situation of the broken toe, the stubbing of the toe. You're laying on the floor, you're in pain. Now, a man or woman who are masters of themselves, now they may have fallen down in pain just because their mechanical, what we call it, the moving center reacts in such a way that it has become paralyzed, so you fall to the floor. But that's an instant reaction. Reflexes are instant. When the doctor hits your knee with that hammer, boom, it's a reflex. It happens and then it goes away, right? It's the same thing with this pain. Pain is like that kind of pain. That kind of pain. I'm not talking about chronic pain. I'm talking about the pain of stubbing your toe or breaking a finger or breaking your nose. It's an instantaneous pain. It's like someone throwing a boiling hot bucket of water on you. Bam, it hits you as a shock, but then it goes away. It dissipates very quickly to a lower level of pain, of sensation. So that's what happens. So initially the pain hits you, then it subsides. You're on the floor holding your foot perhaps. Probably, if it were me, probably be like, wow, I cannot believe I woke up so unaware of the position of my foot. Why would I do something like that? And I would learn from it. That's what I would be thinking in that moment, rather than indulging in the pain. Because indulging in anything is not a good thing. In the context of the fourth way. I mean, if you're an indulger, have at it. But if you're looking for self-improvement in heightening your conscious level, indulgence is not a very good thing to do in most cases. And then the daughter comes up, right? Into the room, all happy and everything. I know, from what I know about myself, that even though my toe is broken, that initial shock of pain has gone. And now it's just sort of like a dull ache. I would at least be able to manage a smile so as not to dim her light. And when she shares what she has to share, I say, that's wonderful, dear. I just hurt my toe. Could you please help me up here? And then start talking about her again and her day and whatever she wants to do and why she's excited, and let her share. And that's called external consideration. External consideration is when you take the other contract party's feelings and sensations and demeanors into account and put them as a priority over your own. Internal consideration would be me laying on the ground screaming holding my toe, indulging in my pain, and then the daughter comes in and then I swear and cuss at her and yell at her to go away. Can't you see me? I'm in pain. I'm putting myself as a priority over her. So this is basically the concept of service to self versus service to others. And in fourth way, in some ways, you must be service to self, but in other ways, you must be service to others, which would be external consideration versus internal consideration. So the only way that internal consideration would be a consideration is if you put priority on your own development. Because your own development spiritually as a selfless individual via external consideration, self-observation, and eventually, hopefully, the goal of mastering oneself and one's vessel would be that it benefits everyone around you. Because now you can give and share and divide your attention to everyone around you for positive effects on them. Do you see what I'm saying here? Whereas if you are internally considering, you're only always thinking of yourself, you're selfish, don't care about other people, the only thing that matters to you is what benefits you personally on a probably a physical comfort level. So in that same sense, now we come to two other concepts: conscious suffering and unconscious suffering. So what does it mean to suffer? Keep in mind, folks, I'm using plain, simple English to describe these concepts. I'm not using correct sentence structure. I'm using plain, simple English for the ease of the communication. Suffering means to tolerate something. Suffering implies that you chose what's happening. And this means taking accountability for yourself. Like I've said in other places, if you put yourself in a situation where you get ripped off, fucked over, harmed, beat up, whatever, that's your fault. Because if you trusted someone and then they screwed you over, that's your fault. Because you ignored the red flags. Guaranteed. I can't think of an exception to that rule, actually. I really can't. So let's talk about unconscious suffering versus conscious suffering. Let's think of conscious suffering, which means to suffer intentionally, with intent, with volition. I choose to put myself in an uncomfortable situation because by doing so, I am investing value in the bank of self-development. You're creating a material within yourself that will crystallize a center. This is all theory, folks. This is all abstract. A center of positive performance that you can build on later. It will all come back to you in dividends because you invested in it. Now, unconscious suffering, on the other hand, is different. That means you don't have any choice in it, or you feel you don't have any choice in it. You did not choose it. It's something you have to do. You're suffering by the result of your own choices, but you could have made other choices and you wouldn't have to suffer. So the best example I can give of this is starvation. There have been times in my life when I unconsciously starved, meaning through my own actions, irresponsible actions, I starved. I wasn't able to eat. I just had to power through it because of my own choices. I didn't have food in the cupboard. There was no food, therefore I could not eat. There was no money in the bank account, so I could not pay the heat bill in the middle of winter, so we were freezing. Through my own stupidity. That's unconscious suffering. Has no value whatsoever in the immediate scenario, other than you can learn from it and say, okay, I'm never going to do that again. I'm going to take steps to stop and correct this. Now, conscious suffering is different. Conscious suffering is saying, okay, I am not going to eat for 48 hours because I choose not to eat. Even though there's plenty of food in the cupboard, I'm not going to eat. I'm going to fast. That is called conscious suffering. That's a choice. And that value goes in the bank. Most of us can't even go a full 24 hours without eating. It's impossible. We can't even go 4 or 5 hours without eating because we become uncomfortable, which is ridiculous. Because if you ate today, if you ate at least one meal today, you could easily get through tomorrow without food. You may have a sensation in your stomach that is hunger, but that's easily overcome with your mental processes, with your formatory apparatus. You see what I'm saying, folks? That's another concept from the fourth way. When the physical body gives way, when you feel like you don't have any more strength and your physical body is tired, if your mind is still strong, you can keep going for a long time. However, the reverse is also true. If mentally you are tired, starved, beat down, then even though your physical body may be well rested, your physical body is going to fail automatically. That's why they say everything is mental, pretty much. You can mentally overcome anything. This is very true. If you really, really, really think about it, folks. Really, really think about it. All right, so I've gone about 16 minutes talking about this stuff. I didn't intend, my volition was not to go this deep into it this early. But I think I've hopefully maybe planted the seed in some of your minds, the seed of curiosity about the fourth way in Gurdjieff and how it relates to correct sentence structure. Because it is very pertinent to correct sentence structure. And no, I personally am not what one would call, by the standard meaning of it, a spiritual person. I do have my own theories on such. This is not a spiritual thing. This is actually very practical and down to earth, folks. Everything is logical in this system. That's why I'm sharing it with you. I would not be sharing it with you if I could not prove it or had not proven it through firsthand knowledge and experience and so on and so forth. Would not be sharing it at all. I'm not Jehovah's Witness or Mormons coming up to your door and knocking on it, asking you if you heard the good news of blah, blah, blah. That's not what this is at all, because you folks are choosing to be here listening to me, and I am very grateful and thankful that you are doing that. And I hope that this, for those who need to hear it or want to hear it or have a value in hearing it, I hope that this serves you well and propels you, galvanizes you to look into it further. And that would be awesome, because I plan on making many more videos and podcasts and things about this topic, going deeper and deeper and deeper and deeper into it, and then connecting it with the grammar. And maybe by the time I come out the other end of it, having a whole different system of teaching than what's out there today, with a more esoteric bent to it, which let's go into that. And again, folks, we're using fiction babble to describe these things. In the fourth way, Gurdjieff promulgates that there are three knowledge levels on earth in society and mankind. There's an inner level, or an inner, let's say circle, not level. There's an inner circle of folks who are masters of themselves and have this knowledge, and it's a very, 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 very minuscule number of folks who possess this knowledge. And by minuscule, I mean it's about the same as how many people have closure on correct sentence structure, communication, parsing, syntax, grammar. The 1% of the 1% of the 1%, very few, like very, very few, 0.00001% of the population. Actually, you could probably add 100 zeros to that and then put a 1. at the end. And that's how many people would have closure on correct sentence structure. It's the same thing for this inner circle of knowledge. And we call this inner circle the esoteric circle. There's a circle outside of that called the mesoteric circle, which means intermediate, middle circle. And in that middle circle, those folks have the same knowledge level as the esoteric circle. However, the mesoteric circle do not possess understanding of that knowledge. So there is a difference between having knowledge and having the cognition of the knowledge. So the esoteric circle, the inner circle, has cognition of the knowledge, and they can put it into practical use in everyday life. The mesoteric circle has a more, they have the same knowledge level, but it's on a theoretical basis. They can't quite put it into use yet. And then the circle outside of that is called the exoteric circle, which means outside, right? Now, they may or may not have the same knowledge level as the other two circles, but it's definitely 100% theoretical. They have no idea how to even begin using this. They have questions. They may have exposure to that same knowledge, but they have no way of knowing how to use it. They can't YouTube it or anything. But they're at the beginning of the path. Now, those three circles represent 0.1% of mankind. Those three circles together, altogether, probably represent 0.01% of mankind. And then outside of that are all the zombies and automatons and robots who just are like pinballs in a pinball machine. They're zombies. They're reaction machines. They have no idea how to do anything other than react to their current situations based on whether it feels good or it doesn't feel good, whether it's pain or pleasure. It's very simple. I guess what we would call animalistic instincts. But I don't want to insult animals because, for example, dogs, cats, and horses, and deer, and so many other animals are, in my personal perception and humble view, are much more noble than human beings. I feel like, and this is my own personal quote-unquote opinion, human beings are basically the scum of the earth. The shit that we've done as compared to the nobility of nature and animals and how simplistic their behavior is. That's why they're closer to the Creator than we are. We are so far away from the Creator that we have to freaking work to try and get closer. We have to really, really work because we're so far away. Animals and plants, they're right there at one with their Creator. And if that doesn't make sense to you, then that proves my point, that we as human beings, with all humility, have a long way to go and a lot of work if we want to get back to the source, the DI. All right, folks, thank you very much. I hope this wasn't too much for everybody out there. I didn't go into this with any pre-planned ideas. I was just going to speak on this. And I think it turned out pretty well. I'll have to listen back to it later. And let me know what you think. Seriously, whether you want to share your thoughts in the private, send me an email, jasonmatthewg17@gmail.com. Please include your full correct name so I know who I'm talking to. You know my full correct name. I just ask the same consideration of you. Rule one, rule equal. Or even better, leave it in the comments and I'll publish it. And I'll give you KULEANA to it. Thank you very much. And as hopefully this video will come out before the 25th, I'd like to take this opportunity to hope that everyone has positive energy, positive life force, health, continuous health, happiness in your holiday. If you celebrate the holiday, Merry Christmas, Happy Kwanzaa, Happy Hanukkah, Salam Alenka, everything that I can think of. Only positive thoughts, only positive energy and kindness to you and yours and your loved ones. And we'll see you on the other side, hopefully, in the new year, quote unquote, new year 2025. Thank you very much for your viewership. Thank you for listening to me. And we'll catch you on the flip side.